Live, so should be live here. Let's give it a second here just to make sure on my end we're good. But if you're watching this, hey, how you doing? It's good to see y'all again. Yeah, looks like we're live. Okay, so welcome back to the Breaking Bob channel. First ever live stream. Also, we're doing this. It's uncharted territory, folks. Have no idea. When you take a couple months off, obviously the first thing you want to do is throw yourself out there live back on the internet. So we'll see how this goes, but it's good to be back. I've missed y'all, missed this channel. It's just been a few months, but obviously just life just kind of it's had to take a break for a little bit. But I'm back. It's the 2026 NASCAR season. Got some notes. It's been a packed few months that I've missed. So we're gonna catch up on all that instead of doing a video. I figured we'll do a live stream. And if anybody's watching it, that's great. If you're still subscribed to the channel, I do thank you for staying through the hiatus. I'll be back for daily NASCAR content moving forward. So excited to get back into the 2026 season. It seems like everyone is rejuvenated after a long off season. So, of course, if you're new here somehow and you've stumbled across this live stream, make sure to hit that subscribe button here at Breaking Bob. But again, a lot happened this off season. Won't get too deep into it, but of course, the tragedy that happened, whether it be the Biffles, the Annettes, the Hamlins, multiple different ones, thoughts and prayers go out to a very emotional off season in the NASCAR world. So obviously, that you also had the cloud that was the lawsuit hanging over the NASCAR world's head. Got through that with a settlement, predictable, an ugly settlement, though. And it's interesting to see it unfold in a public eye because you get to see behind the curtain with all the text, the emails, the numbers. I had a job back in the day where they, for some reason, had on the back end, you could see the emails internally, and I got to see all my boss's emails. That was always a little bit fun. Getting to see the all internal emails from the NASCAR world, it felt like I was just getting to snoop through it all. It was fascinating to see the Francis get slung through the mud, everything about it. It really was just fascinating, I guess, but also kind of sad because you're seeing the sport get split into two. So hopefully, with that settlement and everything coming through with that, we can finally start to heal from this off season that seemed like it just never ended. That being said, got through the lawsuit. Will the France family sell the sport? I've been thinking about that potentially down the line. It's not going to be this year, I don't think, but now that everything has been lifted through the veil of Oz, Bill France obviously was the scapegoat for everyone, and rightfully so for the most part. But you got to wonder what the sport looks like in the future, whether they'll sell to private equity, whether it's an ownership group. The France family sells outright, keeps the majority. A lot of things can happen, but I thought what that was one of the main things that was a takeaway for me with that lawsuit was just the ownership moving forward in the sport of NASCAR. Unprecedented that a family owns a major sport in North America nowadays, but we'll see how long that lasts. So got through that. One of the major news of the offseason was the Oval getting switched in with the Charlotte Roval in the playoffs. They're starting to listen to fans, I guess, really quickly after the lawsuit. They're trying to bring you home, whether it's through the hell yeah marketing or, again, changing the Roval to the Oval. People have been wanting that for a while, especially with the change in the playoff format that I'll talk about in a second. It fits doing the Charlotte Oval over there. It does. So I think that makes a lot of sense moving forward with the Roval. I'm sad to see it go because it produced entertaining moments, but it produced entertaining moments for the sake of the calamity and chaos that was the playoffs with the rounded tiers. So it doesn't fit with the chase format moving forward. It would just be a chaotic parking lot race. No eliminations. The drivers aren't going to be as aggressive sending it in that race with one or two spots potentially mattering in that race specifically. So it just didn't fit the calendar. The Charlotte Oval is, of course, fantastic. So I really was excited to see them move that into one of the best tracks in NASCAR in the next gen. So down below in the comments, if you're watching this, you excited about the Charlotte Oval? I mean, I can't imagine you're not, but there are Roval fans like me that I did want to see at least a road course in the playoffs, only for the fact that you're going from 6-4. Thanks, Shane Van Gisbergen. Way to ruin it for everybody. But on a serious note, you move from 6-4. That's fine. I get that. But the way they've staggered it, all four races are in the first 26 races in the regular season, none in that final 10. I get it. It's not an end all be all, but as a NASCAR fan, of course, I have to complain about something. And I wouldn't mind seeing Watkins Glen move back into the fall. Not sure why that got moved in the calendar in the first place there. If I'm missing something, let me know in the comments down below. But I would like to see a playoff race in the chase moving forward. But yeah, I think we might as well get into the chase talk because the chase is back. NASCAR finally learned their lesson after a disastrous Phoenix Championship weekend where I think Connor Zilisch and Denny Hamlin both are going to say, "Yeah, you're welcome, guys. The chase is back. We'll be the face of why it changed, and whether that's immediate reaction or otherwise." It was frustrating that it took that to get this to change. But that being said, winning you're in is out. The chase is back. 16 playoff drivers in a 10 race just points, no resets, no eliminations. Probably too many drivers. 16's a lot, but we'll compromise there. That's okay. But the winning you're in format, I love that that is gone. And it's not the fact that it's because if you win a race, you shouldn't be in the playoffs, but it took away from the conversation. And everyone's talked about this, but whether it's a Harrison Burton, a Josh Berry, it's frustrating that a guy that has this win and all the conversation is, well, he's locked in the playoffs. The Daytona 500 winner should be, oh, you won the Daytona 500 crown jewel race. Well, you're talking about the playoffs instead. So I love that is a change moving forward. I'm sure Trackhouse and Shane Van Gisbergen are a little frustrated about that. But with that, there are more points per win, now up to 60 points awarded for the win. So you can maximize those weekends. And I think the other thing that really is fascinating about this chase moving forward is that I haven't seen a lot of people talk about this. DNFs are going to be huge moving forward. If you can somehow finish in a 15th place instead of a 25th or a 30th, if you can get your lap back, that could be the difference in, I'm not going to say a championship, but it could be the difference in a championship with the way this 10 race format moves forward. So I'm really excited to see how that is going to change. It's not going to be the full, 2003 format where Matt Kenseth kind of just, strung good results instead of wins to get there and kind of almost ruin that format, even though it was changing it. And regardless of that, no, it's going to be just consistent results get in instead of the Vegas race, which was that first race in the round of 8. A lot of drivers said that was the most important race of the year outside of, well, I guess it's going to be Homestead, but Phoenix in that championship finale, just because if you won that race, you were locked into the championship if you were in that round of 8. You could focus on development and take those final 2 weeks and those final 2 of the final 3 weeks off. That's unprecedented. No other sport does that. So I'm glad they're changing that. It's exciting to see the chase format. And I'm excited to see the drivers really excel and who's going to, everyone's saying Kyle Larson, Chase Briscoe, maybe Denny Hamlin. We'll see if he can repeat back in Phoenix. It's going to be at Homestead though. One other change in the offseason, and it was already announced, but the Phoenix now Homestead will be the championship format race, or I guess they're going to crown the champion there, not a one race chase there, but I'm excited to see all of that. So a little bit of the offseason talk that we've got there. If I missed anything or if you want me to talk about anything in the comments down below, let me know. But otherwise, let's get into some of the playoffs talk because, again, 16 drivers are going to be locked in to the chase. And I've got this kind of I layered it out in a stack here of locks, near locks. I've got picks and then a couple of guys that are just on the outside looking in. And it's going to be really interesting. And I'm going to talk about this here in a few, but if you have a DNF at Daytona and then Atlanta, 2 drafting plate style tracks, you're going to be behind a little bit further than your competition. And you can't just run, we'll sneak into a win down in the line. No. You're going to have to consistently perform if you want to get yourself into a position. So with that being said, 16 drivers into the chase. I've got 9 guys that I consider locks, just straight up locks. And let's just go through it. From Hendrick Motorsports, Kyle Larson, William Byron, Chase Elliott. Joe Gibbs Racing's got Chase Briscoe, Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin. Self-explanatory. The 2 powerhouse programs in the Cup Series. They're going to get at least 3 cars in, you would think. That's historically how it goes. Got Ryan Blaney in from Penske. Got Tyler Reddick in from 2311. And I have Ross Chastain in as a lock for Trackhouse just because Chastain has been outperforming what Trackhouse has brought. And with Trackhouse, another year now with that 3rd car now with Zilisch in for Suarez, Chastain's always been that lead guy. I think Trackhouse will at least put him into the playoffs, no doubt. So those are my locks. I've got 9 guys locks. Still leave 7 spots near locks for me. Bubba Wallace, Joey Logano, Chris Buescher, and Alex Bowman. Bowman, Buescher, and Logano, very, very consistent guys. Bubba Wallace, I think he had 9 DNFs last year. So it's not that you know, I'm not just completely in on Bubba Wallace, but it's his consistency in top fives, top tens, and he's gotten better every single year. He's maturing into a driver. Seems like fatherhood's a good look on Bubba Wallace. So I think that Logano isn't quite on the level of Blaney as far as just consistency. But he's got Paul Wolfe as his crew chief, who could be one of the best strategists in the game, if not the best, as far as getting finishing results. And that's really what's going to be a major, major difference this year than the years past in the playoff format. So I got Joe Logano as a near lock. Chris Buescher, RFK, guy is consistent. It seems like the winning you're in format has kind of just screwed him a few times when he's one of the more consistent drivers in the field, just hasn't had the top end speed to consistently win these races. But I think you'll look at him pointing his way in, no doubt. And then Alex Bowman, everyone's piling on him. I think it's a contract year once again. Who's going to be in that 48? Alex Bowman is in a Hendrick powered car. So whether he has a couple DNFs here or there, maybe even on the bubble for the last month, but it comes down to 16 drivers consistently. If you're in a Hendrick Motorsports car, I'm going to put you in a near lock if you're Alex Bowman. Maybe not because you're the fourth guy at full lock, but you're pretty good there. And then I've got 3 spots left. And I filled this out, and then I went through it with the guys I left just out, and I thought, this is harder than I thought, because those fringe guys, I'm going to say it right now. I have Ryan Preece in, and I was going to say in my predictions here, Ryan Preece wins a race in 2026. Now, that's not fair anymore because he went and spoiled the script, although it was a non-points paying race. So we're still good. I have Ryan Preece pointing himself in just because he seems like he is so consistent, like Chris Buescher, finding their way into those top 10s, those top 15 results. And that's what's going to be the difference, especially in the 14 to 18 mark in the regular season standings, how I have it here. So Ryan Preece I have in. I have Ty Gibbs in just because, again, Joe Gibbs Racing, like Alex Bowman and Hendrick Motorsports, it's the consistency of that fourth car there. Maybe not a near lock, but Ty Gibbs does seem to find himself right around that cut line no matter what. Will this be the year that Ty Gibbs finally gets the monkey off of his back and gets into victory lane? He doesn't have Chris Gabehart hovering over the crew box, so maybe that'll be good. Maybe that'll be bad. But I have Ty Gibbs into the playoffs for now. And then my final spot, I do have Shane Van Gisbergen currently in. Everyone's divided on this one way or the other. Fewer road courses. I get that. More points. I don't think Shane Van Gisbergen sweeps all 4 races. Egg on my face here in a couple of months. But that being said, he's still going to be maximizing those points. And you saw him at the Clash this weekend. He's getting better. You looked at him in the last 10 races in the playoffs last year, was doing a lot better returning to these tracks he's only been at once or twice in a Cup Series or even Xfinity Series car. Sorry, O'Reilly Series car. Put $1 in that jar. We'll do that every time. But I've got Shane Van Gisbergen as the final playoff spot. So that leaves on the just out. I put on this list, and it's a long list: Hocevar, Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski, Austin Cindric, Eric Jones, Michael McDowell, and Daniel Suarez. Out of those lists, I could see any of those guys finding themselves right around that spot when it comes to the Daytona finale as far as the playoff cut line. I don't think Carson Hocevar quite has the consistency, especially with Spire Motorsports. But that being said, I've also got his teammates Michael McDowell and Daniel Suarez on the playoff bubble in that just out for the same reasons. Decent car, but never really the consistency to compete for wins on weekends. And, if you're relying on finishing 15th every single weekend, you're going to have a couple DNFs here and there, especially with Hocevar's aggressive nature. And wouldn't be shocked if this is the year he gets a win. Probably going to be it. But that being said, no winning you're in, it's not really going to help that. So don't have any of the Spire trio in there. Kyle Busch. What do you say about Kyle Busch? The RCR tenure started out so well, and then it has just completely fallen off a cliff to the point where he's in a contract year. Is he even going to be at RCR next year? We'll talk about that here in a few. But, with that point, I just don't see Kyle Busch having the race speed, the race winning speed, the consistency. He obviously puts himself in penalty situations, DNFs, at a rate that seems a lot higher than his competitors, with his age, obviously, with his adaptability to the next gen car. It just hasn't been a good relationship. So with Kyle Busch and RCR, don't have him in the playoffs. Austin Cindric, one of the better plate racers in the field, and with Penske, decent equipment for sure. But it seems like their intermediates not quite there at times. They're 2 miles not there, but for Austin Cindric, everyone wants to put him on the bubble. Is he going to be in or out for 2026? His dad quietly is back at Penske, by the way, on the IndyCar side. So, I don't see Austin Cindric leaving Penske, but he's definitely the third man on that team. And, if he makes the playoffs, it won't shock me. But I just, if you gave me 100 simulations, I'd say more times than not, he's not making it. So that's for Austin Cindric. Same thing for Brad Keselowski, especially was just cleared for Daytona today, coming off of a very bad skiing accident, required surgery. He had Corey LaJoie in the Clash car for him last week. He's the third guy at RFK. Definitely, compared to Chris Buescher and Ryan Preece. And I think he's okay with that. He's accepted that role. It's not that he wants to be the third guy, but he's the owner. So at the end of the day, he's got two younger guys that have just been more consistent than him. So if, when it comes down to this final spots, Brad Keselowski out. And then one guy that I haven't even seen anybody talking about on the bubble is Eric Jones. Now, I don't think he's going to be going into Daytona or the final month, but he'll be in that 18, 19, 20 spot, I do think, just because Eric Jones and Legacy Motor Club especially took a big step last year. Of course, it couldn't have been as bad as it was in 2024, but Legacy Motor Club took a massive, massive step. And Eric Jones is one of the more veteran drivers in the field, as crazy as that is to seem. But, obviously, if running at Darlington twice, always good for a chance at a win there. But I would look to see Eric Jones at least be flirting with that bubble spot. So, again, all 16 drivers one more time: Kyle Larson, William Byron, Chase Elliott, Chase Briscoe, Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin, Ryan Blaney, Tyler Reddick, and Ross Chastain as locks, Bubba Wallace, Joe Logano, Chris Buescher, Alex Bowman as near locks, and the final three for my playoffs in 2026, Ryan Preece, Ty Gibbs, and Shane Van Gisbergen. Let me know what you think down below, though. Who do you have in? Who do you have out? Did I miss anyone? Is there anybody egregiously I'm missing? I'm sure there's one name you're probably thinking of, and that's Connor Zilisch. Easy. I think he's a phenom too. He's the real deal. But he's a rookie in the NASCAR Cup Series and as dominant as he was in the Xfinity Series. And it was impressive to watch. That step to the next level, the top series in NASCAR, is so big. And I've heard pundits say it already, but I don't think fans realize how difficult it is fighting for even 20th, 25th. So for Connor Zilisch, I don't have him in the playoff conversation. Now, there'll be races where he's flirting for wins even, but I don't see him consistently in 26 races being able to keep up this year with the field. So I'm going to talk about some predictions for 2026. Let's start with Connor Zilisch. I have him outside the top 20. I probably even have him fringe 25th in the standings. Now, again, still going to contend for wins, especially on road courses. But I see Daniel Suarez finishing ahead of him in the point standings, not because he has more talent as a race car driver, although Suarez is very talented, but just the learning curve of a full NASCAR Cup Series season, 36 races. It's a gruel. And, Connor Zilisch couldn't even survive victory lane for a full season in the Xfinity Series last year. O'Reilly Parts Series last year. So, got to keep him upright, obviously. But for Connor Zilisch, his time will come, but it won't be immediate success. So I don't see Connor Zilisch anywhere near the top 20 in the points this year for Trackhouse Racing. Another prediction for a young driver in the RCR camp is Jesse Love. Now, Jimmy Johnson over at Legacy Motor Club loves him some Jesse Love, no pun intended. My prediction for this year is mid-season, maybe summer, early fall. You're going to see Jesse Love announced into the Cup Series for 2027 with, I think, RCR. Now, will that be in the 3 car? Will it be in the 8? That's the question. But I see Jesse Love in the Cup Series in 2027, whether that's for Austin Dillon, who's struggled the last few years, probably going to take an admin role eventually in the family business, or Kyle Busch, who's, like I said, looking to get out, looking for any way to get out if possible. So I see Jesse Love in the Cup Series in 2027. I see that announcement some point in the summer. That's just a prediction. I have no inside sources over at RCR. If I did, I'd let you know, pop. But as far as other drivers on the Spire Motorsports side, I kind of touched on this a second ago. I have Spire Motorsports winning a race. Maybe it's Carson Hocevar, but I think Daniel Suarez is more likely to be the winner over at Spire this year. Just because a veteran driver in a contract year hungry to prove that he is this is a one and done year at Spire as far as he's concerned. This is a prove it year. This could be the last year he's ever in the Cup Series full time. So for Daniel Suarez, he's going to be he's going to be a hungry driver, acting like a young and hungry driver out there in potentially his final shot. That aggression is going to put him in almost winning must-win territory to prove himself. So I think Daniel Suarez could be the one that wins at Spire this year. I don't know. That might be the hottest take of them all there, but got to swing for the fences. And, we do like Daniel Suarez over here. And I think that Spire program is taking a big step. It's rumored that Chris Gabehart is going to be over there. Of course, he has left Joe Gibbs Racing, the longtime crew chief and then competition director last year at Joe Gibbs Racing. They won 13 races as a program last year at JGR. Chris Gabehart, it sounds like there's right now just a non-compete that he's waiting that time to go over to Spire for. But once Spire adds Chris Gabehart officially, that is a massive, massive addition. And everyone said this last year with Rodney Childers. I get that. And I was even one of those that said that too. But Rodney Childers doesn't have the track record in the next-gen car that Chris Gabehart has. So if Gabehart is over there at Spire, they're going to take a major step forward, I think. And I'm really excited to see what that is in 2026. Another prediction that kind of is just a prediction for an announcement. I think we're going to see Dodge finally announce their Cup Series plans, whether that's 27 or 2028. I mean, you've got that Race for the Seat series that was on YouTube for Mini Tyrell winning. He's racing in the ARCA series this weekend in a Dodge wrapped sponsored car. It's a Chevy. You've got Colleague Racing running the Truck Series program for Ram. But they've got the Cup Series that's completely non-supported by OEMs now. They're the only team in the Cup Series that is not supported by an OEM colleague. With that, you've got to think that they know that in the future Dodge is coming. Everyone knows Dodge is coming eventually. I think you'll see that announcement one way or the other in the future. So excited to see that. If you've got any predictions down low, let me know. I'd love to hear them. And we'll see if these come true or if I've got major egg on my face here in a couple of months. But, before we get into the Daytona week stuff, real quick, just want to touch on the clash at Bowman Gray because, of course, Ryan Preece winning. It was a really cool scene. Him in Victory Lane or Victory Corner kind of just threw up some banners behind him and the Cookout Milkshake started dancing and Ryan Preece just threw some F-bombs out there. And everyone had a good time, it seems, as the sleet fell in Winston-Salem, unless you were on Twitter and you were a NASCAR fan because it seemed like it was just a nuclear war out there. But I partially kid. I get it. I was, frustrated watching that final 100 laps as well. But at the end of the day, that's what the clash is too. Obviously, the weather threw a monkey wrench into it. For an already volatile circumstance of a short track, caution laps aren't counting, which we got to change. Caution laps have to count, even if we add laps to the race. You got to do something about that because it took way too long to do those 200 laps. But everyone that's, trashing those final 100 laps, and I get it, those first 100 laps of the clash and the last chance qualifier, which historically is always better, whether it's the All-Star race or the class, the last chance qualifier always produces great racing. And that battle between Austin Cindric and Corey LaJoie was worth the price of admission alone. It's just the fact that it was at, 4 p.m. on a Wednesday and most NASCAR fans weren't able to watch it. I understand that. They only got to see the chaos before Masked Singer preempted it. That being said, it is what it is. It's a preseason race. Not every year it has to be this change that completely changes the schedule. Everyone's saying, we have to go back to Daytona now. Nobody was saying that after the first couple of years in LA. They were saying you have to move it around to keep it fresh. Absolutely get that. But as somebody who was there for the very first clash, ticket right there, not to brag, it was an electric event. Visually, in the city of LA, the short track and the Coliseum, the racing was great. Last year at Bowman Gray wasn't bad. Chase Elliott winning, it was a fan favorite story. Nobody was saying last year, move it to Daytona. There was a small portion probably, but let's just pump the brakes on, moving it, and the Clash is awful at Bowman Gray just because some sleet happened. Perfect circumstances for a bad event in the last 100 laps. But again, that last chance qualifier and those first 100 laps, fantastic. Go back and watch that last chance qualifier between Cindric and LaJoie. It was great. And both drivers even loved it afterwards, saying, you could tell they both respected each other afterwards. It was what it was. But, everyone wants to say, oh, there's going to be destruction derby at this Bowman Gray. What do you think Daytona's going to be? Why do you think they moved it in the first place? Besides the fact that the attendance had dwindled, those cars were torn up. At least we forget Eric Jones limping home that 20 car. I mean, I'm just saying, folks, give Bowman Gray at least a little props for the first 200 laps out of the 300 scheduled between the LCQ and the All-Star main event. So, Clash thoughts or soapbox, we'll get off of that. Let's talk some Daytona week before we get out of here. Because, hey, 25 minutes, 26 minutes. Hey, not bad, honestly. I'm not rambling as bad as I thought. So, got 8 people in the chat. Hey, I'll take that. It's better than 0. I thought we'd have 0. So thank you for watching. And if you're catching up tomorrow or this week on YouTube, again, I appreciate you for sticking around here at the Breaking Bob channel. I'm excited to talk some racing because it's the Great American Race Week, folks. It's the Daytona 500. What more could you want? I mean, you got Brad Keselowski and Cletus McFarland both cleared for the Cup Series and Truck Series races today. Cletus is running double duty, of course, with ARCA. Ran it last year. The phenomenon that is the Bald Eagle is just taking over the NASCAR world. He really has. And it's fun to watch the social media world embrace him in NASCAR. But I think that Brad Keselowski getting cleared, everyone acted like it was a foregone thought, but I mean, that is a close timeline. I know that the snow and the weather kind of pushed things a little bit, but that being said, I mean, getting cleared the week of Daytona, Brad Keselowski, glad to have him back. Cletus cleared. It's going to be an exciting week. And then you've got the Truck Series. ARCA is what it is. Yeah, ARCA is what it is. But that being said, the Truck Series field, you've got multiple Cup Series stars in it. Of course, Carson Snowsfar is running all 3 NASCAR Series events this weekend. But you've got Butterbean Queen in there. You got Travis Pastrana quietly running in the Truck Series, it feels like, this weekend. Oh, no, yeah. A guy named Smoke is in the race this week. Tony Stewart from the drag racing world. Tony Stewart is in the Truck Series race. He is making his return to the NASCAR world. So I'm excited to see what that looks like. And Thomas, I see your comment about Keselowski. Aging past his prime, the broken femur. I kind of touched on it a second ago, just kind of a little bit, but you don't want to call him washed. Never, ever want to call him washed. But that being said, he's definitely, in his 40s, and the trend is, he's the 3rd guy at RFK. He's definitely seen the better days behind him. I don't see him competing for a championship at all. I think he's just kind of, bridging the gap at RFK, competing for race wins and trying to get in the playoffs. The goal for Brad Keselowski is to get in the playoffs. It's not to win championships anymore. So, you can look at that how you want. If you're a Brad fan, the wins aren't going to be on a grand scale anymore. They're going to be smaller victories, top 10s, top 5s instead of race wins now. It's going to be a different look, That's been the way it has been for the last few years, ever since Brad really joined RFK, almost like a rebuild on a football team. Whether it's the cars, because RFK was in the dark ages for so long, I don't want to say Brad's completely washed, but I definitely think it's going to be a year where Brad's fighting for 15th, 20th place, and the occasional top 5s here and there, and that's when we're, hey, yeah, I love Brad's run today. Really cool to see him out there, but a guy that Brad's gonna be in a few years. Brad will be running a one-off truck race like Tony Stewart, who I haven't seen any talk about Tony Stewart at all really this week leading up to it. Maybe that's just, obviously Tony's running in the Ram truck with Colleague, and, it's still fresh and brand new. And I think we're still getting our footing with Ram in the door, but, Tony Stewart in the NHRA, and Tony Stewart left the NASCAR world kind of weird terms, I guess, not only selling his stake in SHR, but just the way things had gone the last year. So the fact that he's coming back is a major, major step. And I hope he just enjoys it. And this is the step in the right direction for Tony Stewart, mending his relationship with NASCAR. I'm not saying it's completely broken, because otherwise he wouldn't have even taken this role with the Truck Series race. But we need to see guys like Tony Stewart, like Jimmy Johnson, hanging around the garage one way or the other. Wouldn't be shocked to see a guy like Kevin Harvick even in the O'Reilly Parts series. Got it right that time. O'Reilly Parts series. Wouldn't be shocked to see a guy like Kevin Harvick run a race or two moving forward. Dale Jr.'s talked about coming back again. He's getting the edge. So, love seeing these veterans come back. But Tony Stewart, that's going to be awesome on Friday. So excited to see Smoke back, and then Stuart Friesen also returning in that 52 truck after, of course, the dirt wreck that we're lucky to even have Stuart Friesen in this world still, let alone racing again in 2026. The mental fortitude, the gall, the gumption, dude's an alpha. That's awesome to see Stuart Friesen back in the 52 seat. As far as the O'Reilly series goes on Saturday night, on Valentine's Day night. So it's, gentlemen, it's Valentine's Day date, O'Reilly series opener at Daytona. Pick your battle. That's a tough one. Good luck. Anyway, O'Reilly series, obviously losing Connor Zilisch, the major star, but everyone else for the most part is still around. And outside of Nick Sanchez, who got done dirty in that 48 seat, I'll go to the mountaintop shouting that. But I digress. The quality of racing in the O'Reilly series is fantastic. The broadcast on the CW, really, really good. So I'm excited to see that. One of the few real big questions I have in the O'Reilly series is, can Corey Day continue to develop? Because this was a guy who was handpicked by Kyle Larson to be kind of the next guy Hendrick Motorsports has funded. Didn't really look great in Xfinity. It was Xfinity last year. Give me credit. It was Xfinity last year. He didn't look great in the series last year. Can Corey Day make that step this year to be a competitive driver, competing for top tens and even race wins? That's something I'm really, really interested to see moving forward in 2026 is Corey Day's development, a driver that a lot of guys have really hyped up as being one of those big prospects, along with the Brent Cruz, the Connor Ziliches, the Jesse Loves. So can Corey Day keep that progression, or is he going to kind of stall in this series? And that's something to watch moving forward for sure. But obviously Sunday is the main event. But we've got qualifying tomorrow night, Wednesday night. We got the duels on Thursday. 45 entries for 41 spots. Now, Jimmy Johnson is locked into the field along with a 36 charter. So 37 drivers are already locked in for 41 spots. Still feels weird. We should do 43 somehow or another. I get it. But anyway, soapbox. We're not getting on it right now. 41 spots open for the 500. Now, as far as the qualifying goes on Wednesday night, 2 drivers will qualify their way in on speed. My prediction is you're going to see Justin Allgaier in that Traveler Whiskey Junior Motorsports entered a 40 car. Not that one. It's going to be a different looking car. Going to be a Hendrick powered car. It's going to be fast. I would not be shocked if they qualify in on speed. They're going to be in one way or the other. Could you imagine NASCAR not having that car in the 500 with the merch Lionel's going to sell? They're going to find a way. They just are. And I have Corey LaJoie also in that Roush 99. I'm calling it Roush because of the number font. The fact that RFK and even the 16 for Colleague is wearing that is the Biffle font in the 16 and the 99. I love the font. It's going to have Biff power. And I think Corey LaJoie in that 99, he's a great plate racer. Got his way into the 500 last year in that 01 with Rick Ware Racing. I see Corey LaJoie just qualifying his way in off of speed. And then racing their way in. Corey Heim is in the 500, not full-time with 2311. No, that's still Riley Herbst, although wouldn't be shocked in the limited races Heim is running this year if he outruns Riley Herbst. But I see Corey Heim racing his way in on Thursday in the duels. I also have BJ McLeod being the one that gets in. Now, Went back and forth between him and Chandler Smith as that final entry. But I'm getting loud for McLeod because I think BJ McLeod is still got it. Obviously been around the sport for years. This is a car that they only bring to plate racing and or drafting style tracks now. But I've got BJ McLeod in just because of the fact that you always look up in one of these Daytona races and say, BJ McLeod's in the top 15. How did that happen? He finds a way. He is a very talented race car driver for what he's got. So qualifying, I've got Justin Allgaier, Corey LaJoie. Racing their way on then on Thursday is Corey Heim and BJ McLeod. And on the comments section, Sheldon Creed finally in the O'Reilly series. He's going to finish second most of the time. I mean, if it's going to be pointing his way in, hey, that's going to work out for Sheldon Creed. So, Mr. Second Place, I do hope he finally gets the monkey off of his back this year. When Sheldon Creed finally wins a race, that is going to be a big celebration, let me tell you. So I do hope Sheldon Creed breaks through. But back to the Sunday, we talked about the open entries. Let's get into just the 500 talk just for a few seconds here before we wrap up here, because got William Byron. He's looking for a three-peat at the Daytona 500. Everyone wants the stars to be in the competition here, to be the ones that win. And William Byron is, you would think, what you would want in the winner. But, the last few years, the way it's happened with controversy, the first year it was throwing the caution right as they came and took the white. And then last year, it's, similar fashion, didn't get the full finish there. William Byron, obviously, in the media, isn't a huge media star in social world, but is a heck of a driver and a racer's guy. Like, he just, it's not that it's his fault, but, it doesn't move the needle as far as the social world. So someone like a Ryan Blaney or a Bubba Wallace, it would definitely transcend in media a little bit bigger. So William Byron, though, going for that 3-time Daytona 500, can he be the guy that wins it? I mean, Hendrick Motorsports, obviously, with the Chevrolet numbers, he's going to be up there in contention. The other questions I have, obviously, can the fuel save be fixed? You got to have to do something with stages one way or the other, whether you're just, throwing the stage or calling the stage at a certain lap and then keeping it green. But, obviously fuel save is going to be a major thing this year, as it is at every single Daytona race in the next gen era. It is what it is. It's a factor in the race, and you're going to see them 3 wide, and it's going to look great on TV, but, they're going 3 wide, 50% throttle for, at least a third of the race. Yeah, it's great for TV for sure. But, this offseason, I've been watching a lot of those old races, like a lot of y'all have been probably. And, you see some of these guys that were able to drive their way through the field, 15th to 2nd in laps. And it was just because they were able to work the air. They were able to work the traffic. And it's really now, if you have the push behind you, you've got the momentum. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how talented you are. Look at Denny Hamlin. Hasn't adjusted well in the next gen as far as the drafting style track. So can fuel save be fixed? I don't know. But the other thing is, can we just have a full final lap? That's all I'm asking for. Can we just get the final lap in? Can we take the checkered flag? We're on a 2-year streak. I don't know if I can take a 3rd year of this. Especially if it's William Byron. No discredit to William Byron, but just let's run a full final lap in the Daytona 500. The biggest race in America, or at least in stock car racing, the biggest purse in motorsports as far as payout. It deserves a full final lap. So, with that being said, let's talk predictions before we wrap this up. For this weekend at the Daytona 500, my official prediction, young Ryan Blaney is your Daytona 500 champion. Now, I say that because obviously he's had so many close calls. One of the best in the business at drafting style tracks. Penske brings the speed every single year. And it's just a matter of if he can finish the race, really. But I've got Ryan Blaney finally breaking through at the Daytona 500 this year, but a long shot. 2 guys, Todd Gilliland and Corey LaJoie. LaJoie, if he makes it, would not be shocked to see him racing up there at the front. But more realistically, Todd Gilliland is a guy that has been always in the top 10 on these drafting style tracks. And with Front Row Motorsports, they bring really fast cars to Daytona and Talladega, especially. So would not be shocked to see Todd Gilliland racing for the lead there with 3 to go. Really, really excited to see that. So with the 500, obviously, it is a lottery at the end of the day, but you do want to see a full final lap again, full final lap. But you want to see the stars of the sport really excel in the biggest races. So, part of me wants Ryan Blaney to win just because it would be good for the sport, but also he's been so close that I really would like to see him get through. If not him, someone like a Kyle Busch. I mean, goodness gracious, could you imagine Kyle Busch winning the Daytona 500? A couple years ago, he was so close. Then of course, the caution came out, extra laps, and then he lost the lead, and it was all from there. Would be fantastic to see Kyle Busch in there. So, we've made it this far. Did I miss anything? Is there is there anything we want to talk about in the comment section? Let's catch up here a little bit. Mike Joy. We're not going to have any Mike Joy slander here in the comments. What is this? We have to rely on Mike Joy to determine. Okay. I love Mike Joy. I do. He did sound a little old this year at the Clash. It was just battling a cold. But that being said, Mike Joy is still the voice of my racing childhood. So I thought it was Mike Joy slander. You're good, Thomas. But yeah, we'll be here this weekend, of course, leading up to the Daytona 500 for coverage, more videos than live streams probably. But hey, if this does well, if y'all like this, we can do some more live streams moving forward. It's good to be back. I do appreciate y'all for sticking around here at the Breaking Bob channel. Through the dormant months here, we are back. I'm not going anywhere now. Brand new set. Yeah, we redid this whole thing for y'all. If we're going to come back, we're going to do this right. So I've got the whole backdrop here, got die casts, we've got posters. The bumper is still here. It's an iconic part of the set. The bumper is going nowhere. Don't you worry about that. That's going to stay around here. But again, a lot of exciting days to come here as it's officially Daytona Speed Weeks, y'all. Tomorrow night qualifying. Excited to see what happens moving forward in the 2026 NASCAR season. Let me know your thoughts down below. Predictions for the season. If you disagreed or agreed with anything that I said tonight, let me know, because I threw this down and just kind of wanted to see, what would stick. We'll see if these predictions are good, or if we look back on this in a few months and go, Bob, you were rusty coming back. But that being said, I came back and did a live stream instead of a video. We completely did what the opposite of, dipping our toe in the water for a return. So, I hope that you appreciated the live stream here. If you had fun, again, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more content. I will see y'all this week for the Daytona 500 events leading up. Thanks for watching, and